Welcome, everybody, to the LIPSEY'S Aim Higher podcast. I'm Rabbi Brazino. We have Jason Klossner here, and we have Chris Laack.
Chris Laack.
All right,
yep.
good. Yeah, I did it right.
My grandpa used to joke, in World War II, when he went to go serve, his drill instructor called him Laack, and he corrected him. So he told me, if I'm willing to do that in those situations, you got to make sure people pronounce it right.
I bet that went well for him.
Yeah.
Product manager.
Product manager.
Yeah, with Federal. And we were just talking about you guys, I don't know, an hour ago.
Yeah.
If that. Yeah. So glad you came over. I know Jason wants to get into this. You know, we've got some cool new stuff coming out.
Some show and tell.
So really exciting news on the 32 H&R Magnum front. We've been kind of talking about it a little bit. It's a new high-tech defensive load from Federal, an 85-grain Hydroshock Deep 32 H&R Magnum load. Chris and I talked at the SHOT Show last year when we introduced the Ultimate Carry Series guns in 32 H&R.
Yeah.
Said, hey, these guns are going to be really popular, and to Chris's credit, hey, let's look at doing a good load for it.
Yeah.
And
I love the cartridge, so it was cool to see somebody supporting making that. It's a great cartridge. So to see you doing a gun was really exciting. So.
And it's funny, you know, some people had some skepticism how popular it would be, and the 32 has outpaced the 38 all through the UC sales. So it's really been a home run. People are really falling in love with it. But there really hasn't been a really high-tech, modern defensive load for that available that I'm aware of.
Yeah, no, we helped kind of co-develop that, right, with H&R. So it's kind of, it should have been on us to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And we were just unsure whether the demand was going to go
well, there's
there or
no
not,
really guns in it.
Yeah,
so,
but that 312 diameter, that's such a sweet spot in handgun bullets too. So it was a great opportunity to give us another chance to go back and look at it. And the things we've learned about making a good terminal bullet in those decades since it was introduced is tremendous.
Right.
So is that those technology leaps, right, were huge. So it was fun to go back and kind of with that, understanding everything we know about modern bullet making, let's take a look at this cartridge and what can we bring to the table for that. So
I thought it was really interesting. We were talking a little earlier about how Federal approaches a new handgun load and how they determine what bullet it ends up being and everything else. Chris, why don't you tell our audience how Federal does the process of coming up with these loads?
Yeah, so we want to design every bullet for what it's going to do in the guns it's going to do it in, right? So we're not going to make, well, this is a pretty good bullet, so let's just scale it to different calibers, speed it up, slow it down.
Yeah, right.
We're going to look at exactly what that bullet needs to do. So I go to the engineers with the technical requirements of that bullet. No preconceived notions of what bullet it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, what guns do we need to get in to shoot it out of? What do we need to be focused on? What are your technical requirements? In a terminal, it's pretty obvious, right? I'm looking at penetration, depth, and expansion. And then they look at, okay, how much energy do we have to work with? What are our parameters that we have to work with within SAMI specs? We got to make sure it's safe in everybody's guns. All the gun companies agree this is the parameters that make it acceptable in our firearms. So you look at all of those. The engineers will take that, come up with in their experience, what their best guesses are. We'll do iterations. We'll build a bunch of bullets, and they'll do prototype tooling and just kind of do a bunch of different bullets. Some with existing stuff. Some they'll do some fringes, right? They'll try odd lead. Well, this is lead out of a 30-30 load we do, but it's a different alloy than we would normally use in handgun. But let's try it and see what we can get at. So they go and they do these. They iterate, test, down select. What are the best parameters from each of them? Can we combine them? Can we tweak it? What can we do? Iterate, test, down select.
Wow.
Iterate, test, down select. And they'll do that over and over again until you get what we think are going to be the best performing in the bunch. And then you optimize. Right. So at that point, like, how good can we make it?
Right.
Like, even if it's already pretty dang good, how good, where else can we take it? Is there anything we haven't thought of? And we do that for
just
every...
like micro adjustments almost.
Exactly,
to where,
Skive depth, skive geometry, jacket thickness, jacket shape, ogive, knee plat, hollow point depth.
Moja.
You
are speaking another language now.
Just all of these things. And then you got to make sure it works in all of the technical requirements. So you also have accuracy. And then you also have to be able to load it in the factory. So what are different powders? What are different burn rates? How much flash do we get? So we do all these different things. So once we've got a bullet we really like, then you play with loads. And so yeah, they do that for every, especially in personal defense, every new load we're going to put out. We put that kind of work into it because the goal is to have the best bullet for what that person's going to use. If they're selecting that cartridge and that gun or that caliber, they've got a reason for it. So we can't affect anything else after that, right?
Yeah.
We just need that rock that we're sending through space to make a lethal threat, not a lethal threat.
Yeah, right.
That's what we can control. So we have a duty to make it as good as it possibly can be.
Great.
Wow,
right?
man. What, Chris, is what's the timeline on that? What's that process to from kind of from the concept to all that testing and kind of all that bracketing down, until you get to the final product?
It depends on what the parameters are, what the technical requirements are, and if you hit roadblocks, but 1 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how long has this particular cartridge been in the making?
This one, about a year. We
started talks a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
we moved pretty quick on this one.
Yeah.
We had the advantage that 32 H&R is just such a darn good cartridge. It's got the right amount. It's got enough energy that we had something to work with, that it worked really well with. We ended up using the HydroShock Deep bullet, and there's a good reason why that bullet works the best for that, because we had some energy to work with, but not a ton.
Yeah.
Right, and we're dealing with short-barreled revolvers, so we needed to make it work well in there. But we also want to make it work, and if anybody's got a 4-inch gun, or if anybody's going to throw it through a carbine or something, we need to be able to make sure it worked in those too.
I'm going to steal this. What am I looking at right here?
So we ended up doing an 85 grain HydroShock Deep. The beautiful thing with the HydroShock Deep bullet is, for low energy cartridges, we maximize how much expansion we're going to get. So it expands rapidly, gets to as big as it's going to get, and then it kind of caps that, which reserves more energy for penetration depth.
Gotcha.
Right, so if it got bigger, more violently, faster, and even bigger, it creates more drag, and it's also using that energy to do that.
Right.
So then we're using up energy we could use for penetration depth, and we're creating more drag because it got so big so fast and
Reduce
early.
penetration.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was finding that sweet spot with this, and it worked out so well that we end up getting about 0.47, 0.48 upsets from a 312 diameter bullet. That's good. That's
out
a
of
good
a 1
size of
7/8
offset.
inch barrel too.
Exactly. And these were all shot out of that gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of the ultimate carries.
Yeah.
This is cool.
And 14 inches of penetration into bare gel because it gets a little bigger. The upset gets a little bigger, and 14 and a half inches of penetration because it delays the upset just that little bit, so you get a little more penetration depth. So 14 and a half, and that's the FBI's 4-layer heavy clothing protocol, which is a layer of denim, a layer of fleece, a dress shirt, and t-shirt, set thread counts, right?
Wow.
So
That's great.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, really, that outperforms a lot of 38 special stuff.
It does, yeah. We were joking that I'm looking at. I thought we had some really great 38s, and we do. Like, we've maximized what you can get out of a snub-nosed 38. But then I see what I got here, and I'm going. I think I'm just going to go and get a ultimate carry revolver and just go to 32 H&R and retire my old 38 J-frames.
And you get an extra shot.
Yeah,
And a lot
exactly.
less recoil. That's one of the beautiful things about the 32 H&R that I've found is, because I think you told me y'all are getting right at 1,000 feet per second out of that short barrel.
1,025, I think, is what it was shot. These upsets were shot at. Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, think about it. If you shot the equivalent weight 38 caliber bullet at 1,000 feet per second out of a short barrel revolver, the recoil is going to be pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
But you don't get that recoil penalty out of the 32s.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And so you really do, you can get that extra speed to ensure that expansion and get the penetration without having to go to a 357 Magnum or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's really pretty impressive. I think the 32 H&R, when it's all said and done, now that Federal is supporting it with HydroShock Deep, you also have an American Eagle
doing an
practice
American
load.
Eagle this year, yeah.
That it could become the default standard of what people look at for a J-frame type revolver.
Yeah, I also love the 32 H&R's got that great spot too, where if you get yourself a 327 Federal revolver, I love that cartridge too, but we loaded that 327 HST hot.
Yeah.
It's a little beast, and some people want that, but if you get that gun, realize you don't really want that, now we've got a really good option to fall back on, right? So little less. So it's
very versatile.
Yeah, it's going to be a really great kind of load to go after for all of that stuff.
Now the American Eagle load, that's an 85 grain jacketed soft point.
Jacketed soft point. Yeah, we just using the same bullet that we make for the 327 Federal American Eagle.
Gotcha.
We worked up a load for that. It was a little trickier than we thought it would be to get it to kind of jive with the carry round, but it's going to be a really good training and target load. It allowed us to get to market faster because we used an existing bullet for that one.
And for a training load,
it's a target.
You're not worried about it. Yeah. So I'd imagine that'd be a pretty good load off a carbine, though.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would.
Yeah. So that's cool. Now look, so Chris is showing me all this stuff, and I'm all excited about it. And he goes, "Oh, I see you guys have a 629 mountain gun and 44 Magnum. I've got the load for you." And he pulls this one out. Tell us what you got coming out.
It's so funny how we're kind of aligned without even being.
I know.
Like we got the same kind of ideas. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that we've got these really leading cartridges already out, options out in the really popular calibers to start catching up with some of my customer requests that I've had over the years. And a big one has been, give me a good 44 Magnum to deal with personal defense against two-legged threats, right? Like I've got my 44 Magnum I carry with me for bear and whatever else is kind of that, but I don't want to have to buy another gun to carry anywhere else. Can you just come up with a good personal defense load? I carry the Gold Dot 44 Special or the Punch 44 Special, but I feel like I'm leaving something on the table. Like we can do more than that in this gun. And so we worked up a 44 Magnum load for personal defense. It is a Magnum. It's a 44 Magnum. It's kind of what you'd expect out of a really hot 41 Magnum or 10 millimeter or something along those lines.
Right.
But a little light for a 44 Magnum, but you get the 429 diameter bullet. And the thing with the HST bullet is that it likes energy, but you can push it too fast to where it starts to come apart because it's a violent expander.
Right.
So we found a good sweet spot. We ended up doing a 230 grain. That's how we got this guy here. We want to take a look at that, but we ended up doing a 230 grain. You're more than doubling size.
Yeah, you're just under 1 inch expansion.
It's like 0.86 to 0.88 kind of range. 0.89, some of them in bare gel. So you're doubling in size, and it's a 429 starting point for those.
Right.
So you're doubling in size, and it's going 15 to 17 inches of penetration in bare gel.
And that's out of a 4-inch barrel.
That is out of a 4-inch barrel. Yep.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So that's it. It works really well with what you're
basically giving people a 44 Special plus P.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of in that it's a hot. I mean, it's a Magnum load.
Yeah. What velocity is that getting out of the 4-inch?
I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but I want to. Well, it's what it gets us to 601 foot-pounds, so 1,000 something.
It's about 1,050-ish type range.
Yeah,
okay.
So it gets us about 601 foot-pounds of energy. And I'm not so worried about the energy. I just thought it was interesting that's kind of where a sweet spot is for a super hot 10, right?
Right. So, well, the cool thing about the way you guys are approaching this, a lot of people, when they want to do a reduced recoil load for like a 44 Magnum or 45 Colt, they just drop the bullet weight, down to 165 or 180 grains. And on the surface, that sounds good, but then it messes up your sight regulation. So for the guy who wants to switch from a 240, woods load to a 240 personal protection load, point of impact is probably not going to be the same. You guys, I like the way you approach it by doing it with standard bullet weights and just tweaking bullet design to get to there. So now you're not screwing around having to have different sight pictures or different sight adjustments and everything else. So I'll be a buyer for this. This is going to be cool stuff.
To be honest, it's just because that was the best bullet.
Yeah.
That's where we ended up in this combination. Again, it's the iterate, test, down select.
Yeah.
Why 230 grain? It was the best frickin' bullet.
Yeah.
So that's what we went with. And it ended up being that right balance of controllability and terminal performance. I mean, you can't do better in the FBI protocol than 14 to 16 inches of penetration and 2 times upset. You can't do better.
Yeah, that's
it's
like the ultimate goal.
It's considered perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So you achieve that, and you make it controllable, and it works in guns that people have, or these guns that people want. Like, I got really excited when I saw you launch that.
It's a common theme.
You guys need to talk more.
My language.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You guys might want to just text once in a while.
I think there might be a gun for ammo trade coming out here.
Yeah, there we go.
My favorite revolver I've got right now is a 629 Mountain Backpacker. 3-inch
yeah,
barrel.
those 3-inch guns. Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. We might bring that one back. So.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, that's cool knowledge, man. I mean, I'm not. Jason can really like get deep in the weeds with this stuff, but I like to learn it as well. And I mean, that's really interesting. The process to me is really interesting, and the testing. I mean, it's just. Man, there's so much that goes into it,
Yeah,
I mean, it's really cool.
It's really clear what our responsibility is, the ammo company.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
It's really clear what our job is in this equation. So, it's if you can do it that well, you have a responsibility to do it that well every time.
Yeah, you really don't have options as far as the.
And if you feel the thing, all the stuff is in nickel cases, sealed primers. So you've got duty grade ammunition, even for stuff that's not necessarily police issue type ammo.
Right.
So you can carry this stuff with confidence and know that they put the time and effort into making it work right.
Yeah.
And we're super happy. I mean, doing this 85 grain Hydroshock Deep 32 load is, in the time frame that you did it, was fantastic. And I mean, kudos to you guys. Chris, thank you so much for putting the effort in and getting on it. And I'm glad you're a convert now. You're a 32 guy.
Yeah. So. I'm really glad that you approached us on it, because I've always loved it, but it was just kind of, is the market going to support it? And, and you took the risk, went out on the limb, and I'm so glad you did, because you are so right. Yeah, and we've been hearing a lot of that kind of feedback too. Yeah. All year I've been getting people ask, when are we going to do something for it, right?
Good.
Like,
when's this going to be out?
Probably about a month and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, they're getting ready to. They actually had a critical meeting on the next stage gate to get it ready for production. We just had that this week, so we're
fantastic.
Moving it ahead, and everything's looking good.
Great deal, man.
Hey, listen, thanks for stopping by. Again, really, really cool, really interesting stuff. I always learn a lot, but Federal, I don't have to tell you where to find Federal ammo. Just Google. Go to Google. But yeah, thanks for coming by, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And until next time, guys, aim higher.